my favorite part of the show, shaking his hand, and he just blew me off right there. It's unbelievable. I'll remember that. My name is Gregory Matthews. You can call me Dr. Gregory Matthews because I have a PhD in statistics. Calm down. I have a PhD in statistics, and I like to remind everyone that I have a PhD in statistics because that's what you do when you go to grad school. You do it just to be obnoxious about it. What I like to do is I like to take the topic of the show, and I like to do a little bit of a statistical analysis for you, and I take out the jokey jokes. We're going to do a real serious analysis tonight, real statistical analysis. The topic of the show tonight is psychedelics, so we're going to talk a little bit about psychedelics statistically. All right. I'd like to begin by showing you my substance abuse timeline. Okay? So here's where I was born in July 1982. I'm 43 years old right now. We are currently at Uncontrolled Variables in December 2025. In July 2000, in the summer after I graduated from high school, I had some beers. And then I went to college, and at the end of the first semester, I tried mushrooms. This is going from 0 to 60 in your drug world, and then that was it. That's it. I tried some beers, and then I was like, let's go straight to mushrooms, and then I stopped. Okay? I just want to tell you a little bit about my experience. I took some mushrooms at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night, and it was the night before my calc final. My calculus 4 final was at 1 the next day, and I took it with my roommate Chris and my friend Scott, and I was like, hey, I'll be able to study on this, right? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. And so I took it, and it was the next day at 1, and I don't want to brag, but highest grade in the class while I was tripping balls. Awesome. I'm incredible. I'm so good at math. I was gonna say, oh shit, it's going crazy. I wasn't studying vectors, I was a vector. I partially differentiated myself. It was fucking incredible. And so my experience that the walls were dripping, there were colors everywhere, the standard things. I stared at myself in the mirror and I watched myself age. I vividly remember that. But my experience was very different than A$AP Rocky's experience, where he had a rainbow shot out of his penis after he took LSD. I did not experience that. That was not an experience that I had. I just got better at math. By the way, in this article, they led with that, and then they were like, oh, Sting, the grass started talking to him, and Rosie Perez, she became one with her mattress. Who cares after the rainbow shot out of his penis? These people know nothing about comedy. You end with the A$AP Rocky thing. So this is an unusual path, right? Alcohol straight to mushrooms. So I asked the question, what combinations of drugs are statistically likely? So I went and got a data set of people who, it was a survey of people who use drugs, okay? So this is collected online with Survey Gizmo between March 2011 and March 2012. We have about 1,800 respondents, and they were asked questions about their drug use and how recently they had used these drugs, right? And then they asked them some demographic stuff. But these are the drugs that are in there. We have alcohol, amphetamines, caffeine. They asked about chocolate usage, nicotine, cyanide, and volatile substance abuse. We also have demographic information. This was mostly done in the UK. More than half of these people from the UK, and we have some education here. Shout out to the 4.72% of people who had PhDs in the survey. And then demographically, slides. Maybe I have to go over here to get the slides to work. Okay. The data here, we have age, gender, and ethnicity. Most of the people were over 34. They were male, and they were white, and those are my people right there. So, I'm the average person who responded to this study, okay? These are my people. Okay? So that's what's in this data set. So let's do a little bit of an analysis with this, okay? So I'm gonna do 3 things. We're gonna first just look at correlations between which drugs are used together very often. We're then gonna do a principal component analysis, and then we're gonna do some lasso regression. And my students are very excited about it because they just took a final exam, and that lasso regression was all over the place in the exam. They love penalized regression. Let's give it up for penalized regression, everybody. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna use Kendall's towel because that's the right thing to do here. Okay, let's look at drug correlations. So this is a correlation plot, and wherever there's a large blue dot, drugs are used more often together, and then if you see any tiny red dots, they're kind of hard to see. So white basically means they're not used together, and red would mean they're used negatively. the most positive correlation in this. So the questions they were asking were things like, how recently have you used the drug? Did you use it in the last day, the last week, the last month, the last year? And we used those count correlations. So the more recently you've used mushrooms, the more recently these people on average were using LSD. And that was the top correlation, was these psychedelics. You also have things like ecstasy and cocaine, amphetamine and cocaine, crack and heroin, amphetamine and ecstasy. Those are the most highly correlated things. Next, I wanted to look at what was the most highly negatively correlated. Crack and chocolate, LSD and chocolate, mushrooms and chocolate, heroin and chocolate, ecstasy and chocolate. So, not a lot of people doing these things together. Not a lot of people doing chocolate and heroin together. That's correlation. That's a dope. That's core plot in R. Okay, let's do a principal component analysis. So I have the correlation structure of all these drugs, and I want to decompose it using a principal component analysis. You've taken linear algebra before. You know what's going on. Okay, so this is, there's the joke. Okay, so this is a principal component analysis, and drugs that are close together on this are drugs that are done often together, okay? And so you can see down there we have LSD and mushrooms, they sort of cluster down there together. Over to the left we have chocolate, caffeine, alcohol, Semeron, and on the right we have like coke, amphetamine, LSD, and whatever. And what I'd like to do is, I always tell my students, it's always interesting to try to interpret what these principal components mean, right? And so I look at the first principal component, and on one side you have coke and amphetamine, and on the other side you have chocolate and caffeine. And so my interpretation of that first principal component is, how likely are you to rob a pharmacy at 3 a.m.? Right? If you're on coke and amphetamine and acid, you're probably going to rob a pharmacy in the middle of the night. Chocolate and caffeine and alcohol don't have that effect. Okay? And then the second principal component, where you have heroin, crack, and meth all the way at the top, and you have ecstasy and cannabis and alcohol at the bottom, that's simply, will it ruin your life or will it ruin your weekends? So that's what the second principal component is. Heroin, don't do it. Just fucking don't do it. Okay. So that's an important lesson in interpreting principal component analysis. There is this one drug here, it's abbreviated Semer, and this is actually, this is called Semeron. Oh shit. Skipping ahead. Oh, Jesus, all the jokes are getting ruined. Okay. So Semeron. So has anyone ever done Semeron before? Pretend you didn't read the slides. Has anyone ever done Semeron before? Clap if you've done Semeron before. Oh shit, I was hoping someone was gonna say it. It's not a real drug. They included it in the study to they included a fictitious drug which was introduced to identify overclaimers, right? So they add this in, which is a nice statistical thing to do. So if they're saying they took Semeron, you're like, maybe these people are lying, all right? So it's not a real drug, but it is a real band. It's these guys. These are 5 guys from Minnesota, and this is their picture on their Facebook. They haven't played in like 15 years or whatever, and this is their picture, and it drives me fucking nuts that they took a picture and they put a shadow over this guy's face. You can't see his face. And my wife said that they look like a support group for wannabe school shooters. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what they look like. I showed my wife the picture, and she's like, yeah, that's what they look like. So I was making fun of this guy, and then I found an article about him, and he said, today I loaned my footwear to a shoeless kid who wanted to go pack up food to send to starving kids in Madagascar. So then I felt a little bit bad about it, but not that bad. I was like, oh man, that's like the nicest thing in the world. That feels so over the top. He was giving his shoes to a shoeless kid who was going to pack food for other starving kids. It's crazy, that's not real, but you can't really make fun of Semeron and not feel bad about it, so, Semeron. Let's end with a lasso analysis. All right, I've done a bunch of lasso analysis. This is a penalized regression technique, and the idea is that I pick a drug, and we're going to do an analysis where the response is yes, no. Have you used this drug within the last? And then I've decided on which unit of time I'm going to use depending on the drug. Okay, so it's either going to be month or year or decade depending on the drug. And then I have predictors that are including age, education, gender, and then the recency of your other drug use. I'm going to plug this into a lasso model, and what lasso does for you is that it does estimation and variable selection at the same time. And so the variables that come out of this, these are the ones that are really important in predicting usage of the response variable. Okay? I then did models are trained here using tenfold cross-validation with R package GLMNet, and all of my predictive analytics students should know what that is because you just took a final on it. And I like GLMNet because they give you a warning sometimes that says this. One multinomial or binomial class has fewer than 8 observations. Dangerous ground. That's the warning they'll give you if there's too few response variables. I like that. They made it sound mysterious. Okay. So the first two quickly, let's look at mushrooms here. We have mushrooms. The variables that were highly related to mushrooms were age, cannabis, ketamine, legal age, and LSD. So what this means is any variable that I have listed up here, these are variables that are the correlation, the coefficient there is how likely they are to use that drug. The larger the number here, so LSD is the largest number here. So that means that the more recently they've used LSD, the more likely they would have used mushrooms within the last month. Okay, that's what this one means. And LSD is the strongest predictor here. They also have things like legal age and cannabis, and then age is a very, very small effect. Okay, I also did this for LSD, and the biggest effect here is mushrooms, right? So we've seen this a couple times in the correlation analysis, the principal components, where LSD and mushrooms, they're really clustered together, right? People who are doing mushrooms are also doing LSD. I guess they like tripping balls. Is that what they say? I don't know. It's been a while since I've been on shrooms. Okay. So that's not that interesting, but let's look at some more interesting drugs. Here's where they get real fun, okay? Let's look at caffeine, all right? So the ones that come up here, the last order is for caffeine. We have alcohol, chocolate, and nicotine, all right? And these drugs being used together isn't surprising to anyone who's ever been at Home Goods, because you've seen signs like this before, right? Woman does not live by chocolate alone. That's why there's wine. A good day starts with coffee and ends with wine. And of course, if I could just combine coffee, wine, and chocolate, I'd only have one vice. Oh, Home Goods. Oh. And then there's this bonus one right here. This is a work-free smoke place. I'd only have one vice. Okay. I fucking love Home Goods. My student told me that her father goes to Home Goods and buys shitty signs like this, and then goes to friend's house and just hides them places. And I was like, I want to be best friends with your father. Okay, incredible. Okay, let's look at VSA now for a second. So with VSA, these are all the things that are associated with VSA. Benzos, chocolate, coke, or chocolate is negative. That means if you're doing chocolate, you're not doing this. Heroin, legal age, LSD, these all show up as significantly related. The largest one here is 0.4205, it's age. So the young kids are doing this. The kids are out there doing VSA, okay? But what is VSA? What is it? What did I say this was? This was volatile substance abuse. Does anyone know what that is? It's huffing. It's sniffing glue, basically, right? And so, oh yeah, wait, what? You were cheering for sniffing glue? Okay, all right, weird audience. I think you guys are all academics. It's like, I do two things. I go to grad school and I huff glue. That's what this audience is. Okay, so sniffing glue, but it's all young kids. It's like the young kids sniffing glue between 18 and 24. And so, if you were not familiar with huffing, what I wanted to do is, and I do this every week, I draw a picture of a young guy sniffing glue. I asked AI so you can get an idea of what this looks like. And this is what a young kid looks sniffing glue. So he's so young and innocent. It's an AI generated thing. What's my rule with AI though?
Do it again, but sexier.
Do it again, but sexier. And so here's the sexier version of the kid. There's the sexier version of the kid sniffing glue. But since it's December, I had it do it again, but sexier and Christmas. And there he is, sniffing glue, being sexy, and Christmas. Incredible. Don't sniff glue, for God's sake. All right, I'd like to end with crack, which is a fun thing to say. Okay, I'd like to end with crack. If you look at crack right here, have you used crack in the last decade? That's the response variable here. What you'll notice here is that there's two really negative, oh my God, there's two largely negative things right here. Alcohol and chocolate, okay? They're negative. That means that recent consumption of alcohol and chocolate means that you're less likely to have used crack in the last decade, okay? Remember this for a second. I'd like to take you on a journey back to my childhood where they had drug programs that were like this. In the 80s, they came out with McGruff the Crime Dog, right? That's Ronald Reagan with McGruff the Crime Dog. This is Just Say No by Nancy Reagan. That's her sitting on Mr. T's lap for some reason. There was This Is Your Brain on Drugs commercial. Do you remember this? This is from 1987. There was DARE in 1983. I had the DARE officer in my class constantly. And then in 1986, Keith Haring put up this is a mural in New York, Crack is Whack by Keith Haring. You know Keith Haring, okay? That was in 1986, okay? And so 1986, Crack is Whack. We need to update this, right? But what we just learned statistically is that chocolate and alcohol make it less likely to do crack. So instead of Crack is Whack, I've come up with a new phrase, and that is, Kit Kats and Jack keep kids off crack. It's scientific, right? I just showed you the math. You can't dispute this, okay? So then what I did is, I was like, Kit Kats and Jack keep kids off crack, so I did what any normal person would do. I created a Facebook group. So there's a real Facebook group out there called Kit Kats and Jack keep kids off crack. We have 2 members right now. Our post was, wafers be rock, that's a fact, sip the Jack, skip the crack. We are a 501c3 nonprofit and scores of peer-reviewed publications. We operate on the scientific foundation that if a child's dopamine receptors are already occupied by sugar in the smooth serving of Jack, there is simply no neurochemical space available for freebase cocaine. It's so obvious what you should do. And then this is a post. I was peer pressured into crack as a child, so now I want to help the organization to help use his Kit Kats and Jack to keep kids off crack. So we're helping the kids already. But wait, we have an event on Saturday. Santa's handing out Kit Kats and Jack Daniels to kids. This is at the Bean. Down in the Loop. And here's the QR code so you can join this. That's the QR code that you can join this. And this is all done on Facebook. And I was trying to figure, I recently got a message from Facebook, and I was trying to figure out why I got this message. And then it made sense to me why I got that message. I was posting all this stuff. Facebook gave me a message. This is a legit Facebook message. Greg, can we help? And they're like, do you want to talk with a friend? 5 ways to support, contact the helpline. And this was like immediately after I created this thing. And so they think I'm on like suicide watch. And like, why would I kill myself? I'm fucking incredible. I'm the greatest statistical comedian in the world. What have we learned today? Cimarron, fake drug, real band. Chocolate and alcohol prevent crack use. Doing calculus is easier when you're tripping balls. I want to thank Nora for my comedy research assistant. There's the QR code. Follow me on MySpace and follow my dog on Insta. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Give it over, great everybody. Give it over Nora one more time. Okay, closing this out is not Victoria. She